Okay, before we begin our meeting, we would like to acknowledge that Stuyak is in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of. Call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. In attendance, we have all of our council. We are joined this evening. We have Helen Young here and Aaron Richards. The approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make that motion to approve the agenda as circulated for our special council meeting Monday, April the 7th, 2025.
Do I have a seconder?
Second it.
Thank you, Aaron. Dr. Klein. Disclosure of interest on any of the agenda items. Sorry, discussion. Approved. Carried. Are there any disclosures of any interest of the items on the agenda? There are none. We do not have to approve the minutes. There are no announcements or proclamations. There are no presentations. We have no written correspondence or petitions. We'll move right into business and we'll get our staff report.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Dive right into the operational budget. There's a small increase in our liability to the regional school board. $38,131. That liability is moved right down to our capital reserves as an adjustment. The reason for the change was based on the March 27th uniform assessment that I received from the province of Nova Scotia. Grants in lieu of taxes. 14,200 was added in, and this was based on property at Main Street and Main Street West, which is owned by DOT. So this grant was not included on the previous draft, so we added that in. There is no change in the sale of services. Revenue from our own sources. The community center hall rentals was bumped up from 8,000 to 12,000. Based on just last year's history, I think we'll have around the same amount of revenue from community center rentals this year. Also a small line item added in for fines, $200. We also increased the penalties and interest for taxes from $8,000 to $10,000. And this is just based on current accounts receivable for taxes.
So Helen, can I just interrupt for 1 minute? Can I just ask you, am I on the correct slide?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark.
Portion there, I just want to make sure I'm following on for the public so we can.
No, next slide,
Okay,
please.
thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, you said penalties and interest taxes
Yes,
is showing 8,000.
Yes.
it was 8,000. Or no, sorry, it was 8,000 or it was 10,000 and I reduced it.
Reduced it, okay.
Sorry.
Sorry, I misunderstood.
Sorry about that. No other changes there. And just a small increase for culvert and driveway installation. And that was based on March 31st development report.
What's this under?
And that is still under revenue from own sources.
The top of the.
Oh, the very top one, sorry.
Unconditional transfers, the equalization grant was reduced from 160 to 160,000 down to $157,183. This is in place for the next 5 years to 2031. That was the only change there. Next slide. Conditional transfers from the government, there's no change. Under expense, legislative, There's no change. Under administrative, medical has been revised, and it's based on the newest statement and new rates. So that has been revised. Postage, reduced that by $2,000. Just because we're not going to be sending out, the newsletters, so that's gonna reduce that. Also reduced further was, stationary office supplies from 10,000 down to 8,000. Also reduced was our insurance premium in general. It was originally $49,071. Based on our new policy, that's been revised to $48,452. Next slide. Police protection, there's no change. Fire protection, there is no change. Under protective other, dog control, that has been reduced to $3,000. That contract is up in June, which means we have 9 months that we're not paying up that $1,000. Next slide. Thank you. Big one here on the water utility, was that the water utility wages were included in the general operating budget. That was my error. I've moved all of those wages over to the water utility budget. This resulted in a reduction of $227,006. So that's the only change there. Down to environmental health, next slide. Under environmental health, we have a small reduction for our insurance premium from $3,400 down to $2,514. Again, that's based on our updated policy that was received last week. Planning and development, there is no change. And recreation, a couple of small changes. Again, the insurance premium was reduced from $5,000 to $4,825. And a bit of an increase for the rec committee to $20,900. Next slide. Next slide, yeah. Thank you. Under physical services, you'll see that the biggest change comes from our reserves, our transfers to our reserves. So all of those adjustments that I just spoke of in that budget fall right down to this bottom line to reserves. So that is the biggest change there. Do we want to open for questions on the operational portion right now? Or do we want to just keep going? Keep going through. Okay. All right, so next slide, or yes, please. It's the water utility operating budget. No change in revenue. Under expense for pumping, there is no change. Water treatment, you will see the big change there is the plant operator wages to $226,551. That was moved over from operational. Under transmission and distribution, there's no change. General administration, no change in depreciation or taxes. And non-operating expenditures, there's no change there either. Okay. Next slide. Again, recreation is pulled directly from the operating statement, so all of those changes that I noted previously in operational are carried over into the recreational budget. Do you have any questions?
Are we doing the capital too, since you continue?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
So, 3-year capital budget summary. Big change I made here was in public works. I added in $250,000 for land acquisition. Just so we have, and that's for the water utility plant. I don't know if that's a fair representation. But we need to have something on that line. You know, it's just so it's there and it's visible. So on 25-26, the $7,335,474. I was getting tongue tied there. It's comprised of public works for 150,000 set aside for paving, 40,000 set aside for a new work truck. 5 million is set aside for the wastewater refurbishment. Recreation has 35,000 in there for the 50x50 asphalt pad. Funding for 28,000 has been applied for. Recreation also has $28,400 in there for repairs to the boardwalk at the River Country Trail. You correct me if I'm wrong, but 17,000 has been applied for funding for that project. Under the water utility, we have the 250,000 set aside for the purchase of land for the water treatment plant. We have Lewis Street at $667,058. Pleasant Hill is $975,016, which brings our total to the $7,335,474. Year 26-27. Total capital budget, $12,550,550,000. That is comprised of public works, 100,000 going towards paving, 50,000 for wayfinding signage, 250,000 for a dump truck. Recreation has trail resurfacing and upgrades for 150,000. And 12 million in for the wastewater treatment plant. Year 27-28. Total $13,255,000, which is comprised of $100,000 going towards paving for public works. Recreation has 75,000 in there for a tennis court, 40,000 for ball field light and expansion, and 40,000 for a shade structure, Dennis Park, and 13 million set aside for the new water treatment plant and infrastructure. And that concludes the budget presentation. Thank you.
I'll start. I have a number of questions.
We're open.
Can we just go back to the operating for a minute?
Absolutely.
So I am looking at administrative, legal fees. I'm just wondering, does that amount include anything for a third-party investigator if we may need one?
I believe that is included in there, is it, that all the legal fees, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
That's all that is.
Okay.
It's very difficult to forecast that because it depends on
Yeah,
if we get a complaint.
100%, yeah.
The depth of the complaint. I think in any case, we come back to report to council on any progress.
Okay, perfect. Public Works. So when I went through this, it looked like a new grader was being asked for, even though the current grader, I believe, was purchased in 2021.
okay, so,
If I go by the debenture, the grader looks like it was purchased in 2021, because I'll wait for the train. Okay,
yes,
when I go by the debenture is for 21 years and you take, or 15 years, you take that off, you get to 2021. It's a
Right.
15-year loan.
it's a 15-year loan. yes.
So, but then I look, I saw that a new grader was being asked for.
That, that is in, let's see, where do you want to go? Wait a minute.
I just saw another grader.
No,
There's a half ton, but there was, I thought a grader of 250,000, I thought.
That's
Uh,
dump truck.
yeah, there's a dump truck.
That's the dump truck?
Yes. And if you're looking ahead to the 28, 29, there's a backhoe in there too.
That's,
So
okay,
that maybe that's
Okay.
what you're looking at.
yeah,
So yeah, so that's included in those, details.
okay,
But we're not going to.
okay. When I also look at Public Works, I'm wondering if we've looked at any efficiencies as far as our town grows, there's more streets. Our equipment is limited. And I'm just wondering if we've looked at any cost effectiveness, when it comes to, then we wouldn't necessarily have to purchase those big items.
Right, right.
So I was just wondering if staff have looked at the cost effectiveness of that, and if they haven't, if they could bring it back to council.
I know I haven't, and, if we looked at maybe snow removal, for example, maybe contracting that out, I don't know what that would look like. Jeff, do you have?
We have in the past looked into it, and it's far cheaper to have our own, as far as the salting and stuff goes, cause. You have to be right here, I mean, you can't have somebody coming from Truro to salt the streets, cause you don't know what they are at that moment, but. As far as the plowing goes. We have our own equipment for the back roads and stuff anyway, so. We use a grader year round, but we have less gravel roads, and it could be looked at again, but we already have the grader, so it wouldn't make sense to contract that out, cause it'd be. A lot more expensive to hire somebody to do it when we have our own equipment now.
So do we have a proposal? Have we ever actually physically looked at it in something in writing to say apples to apples and oranges to oranges? Because I've never seen that.
Not for. A number of years, if,
Yeah.
like, I don't, when Sheldon was here, we looked at,
Well,
yeah. But like, it was so out of reach compared to doing it ourselves.
What's our lifespan of the grader?
Well, the last one was over 30 years old,
The last one was 30 years?
Yeah.
How old is this one that we have?
well, it's 2019, so it's
2019. Oh,
Yeah.
so we have
5 years old.
a lot of
So
time with
25
it,
years
yeah,
of a
okay.
grader, so.
And if that heavy equipment is maintained, it can last 50 years, right?
I don't know.
It depends.
We
right?
maintain them pretty good, and the last one was, the problem with the 30 years is the age rather than the.
Rather than.
It still didn't have a lot of hours on it, but the condition the rust and whatever every 30 years in salt.
In the salt, right?
But it's still 30 years is reasonable for us.
Okay.
Want to know? Go ahead.
If I may, I think what we can do is, as we progress past the budget, we can look at efficiencies as a staff. We've got some neighboring communities that are contracting that. I know East Hants is contracting based in construction for snow plowing. We can look at some of their costs, apply them to the infrastructure costs. That, you know, might be a dump truck or
Yeah.
the costs of plowing our roads. We can come back with some staff reports that can give some ideas to council, and we can get some direction from there. So
Okay.
we will look at it as we go forward.
So for this budget purpose, you're gonna have, bring that back to us
For
before,
this budget, this is based on standard town operating procedure, how we operated in the past. As we look forward to the future, we will, you know, look at efficiencies like contracting out, but in all respects, we are looking at efficiencies, whether that's is building, using green technologies to lower utility costs, things like that. I know Jeff and his team have, you know, gone to LED lighting and things like that, lowering costs where we can.
I would like to see a proposal for this budget. I would like to see what the difference is. Because we need to find some efficiencies in this budget.
Yeah, but
So-
if we have the grader, we'd be spending money, we have
But-
the equipment.
But the thing is we're looking at another half ton, right? Right, we're still, and we're paying on equipment. And as our streets continue to grow, we still only have, to my knowledge, one piece of equipment that does salting and plowing besides the grader.
Sure. Dump trucking.
Yeah. So we are growing. It's going to take more time. It takes, you know, we have a very limited staff. So I would like to see what efficiencies we can find there and, you know, take some pressure off our current staff. If
It'd
it's.
be awesome if that would be the case.
Exactly, but we don't know if we don't have a proposal.
I mean, no, that's
Right.
right. But I
So-
don't think it's gonna go that way. I think
Yeah.
we're gonna be looking at another person and another piece of equipment to make it worthwhile.
But again, we don't know, if we don't have the proposal.
Yeah.
So if we can maybe reach out to the neighboring municipalities and.
We
see what-
can get some information. I think we need
Yeah.
direction from all of council to you know, pull together. We probably need to issue some sort of request for information to get it back from an actual contractor. But let us put our heads down and see what we can come up with.
You can't reach out to the other CAOs?
I will and I have,
Okay.
but I will get into some details.
Just to have some comparable costs.
Mm.
So, because if we can find some efficiencies, we've got some big expenditures coming up. My next big one is the recreation deficit. How can we,
Well, when we have trails and playgrounds and community centers that don't generate money, you can't rent the trail or the playground. It's hard to come up with revenue when we have those facilities.
so is there any way of increasing the revenue or doing with programs or?
Specifically to playground and outdoor green spaces or just in
No,
general?
in general.
With the capacity that we have with our staff, I would say no with what we're at right now. We did increase our rental fee for the community center up to 30 rather than 25 starting April 1st, so there will be a little bit more. I think that's why Helen increased the rental revenue for the community center up a little bit.
What about the programs that you run in the evenings? Like, are they self-sufficient? Like, do they cost us money or do they break even? Or do they bring a little extra in or?
So for adult sports, we're using the school, we're not being charged for that, it's just staff's time right now.
Mhm,
And then the fitness classes, we are breaking even on the adult fitness classes.
mhm,
And then the rentals like cadets,
mhm.
there's no charge to them right now.
Right,
Yeah,
so the ones that you do at the school, do you charge?
we charge a $2 drop-in. So we are generating a little bit of money versus staff cost.
So is it balancing between your staff costs and the program?
It depends on the week, depends on how many people come. It's inconsistent depending on weather and, yeah.
So should we just do a blanket charge or are you getting more in donations, do you think?
It's a $2 charge. if you make it a requirement to pay, you might lose people.
Right,
Just because there's commitment, people don't like that.
right,
So it's either way,
Yeah.
we could try something new.
I'm just wondering,
Yeah,
yeah,
But generally, the drop in fee will be equal to any fee you're gonna charge. From my experience of
Mhm.
renting of facilities,
yeah,
because you're right, some people are, they're gonna be away 3 weeks, they don't wanna pay for 3 weeks, not gonna be there.
Unless it was a punch pass or something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
bunch pass is a good idea.
That is a good
it's a
idea.
great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just asking, like, I mean, $300,000 is a big deficit, so
It is.
I'm just wondering, you know,
Anything we can do for cost recovery would
Yeah.
be wonderful.
yeah,
But you have to keep them somewhat affordable too, cause I think that's part of the
That's part
award
of the
is the
draw.
$2, you know, you can join the gym
Yeah.
fee stands for $60 a month. If you start
Okay.
charging
Mhm,
too much for these types of programs, then somebody else, you know,
mhm.
you might have people who just say,
yeah,
But I do think, when I had children living at home as a taxpayer, I gladly paid taxes to have them participate in community events within the community.
Mhm,
So that was part of my tax dollars at work.
mhm.
So recovery is great, but we shouldn't miss the point that parents are paying taxes as well. To provide facilities and stuff for their children.
But I don't think it's always just town residents, though, Counselor
But
LeBlanc,
I can't help
Right.
that, but,
so,
yeah.
what about your adult fitness programs? So they are, so the fee that we charge for the community center, do we charge that to ourselves?
No. So we pay a facilitator their hourly rate, and then everyone who joins pays their fee, and right now we break even, we don't include the rental rate.
So we're actually in essence losing the rental amount.
Yes, the hour that they're there.
Okay,
However,
Yeah.
if you add that revenue onto recreation, it
Right.
has to come off as an expense on operating too, right? So it's gonna cancel
each other out,
each other out.
so the rental fee really doesn't help
No,
us.
no.
Okay. Alright. It's a lot. Plant operator wages, when you moved it over, how many employees does that include? Sorry,
I believe it's 3, isn't
Three.
it? Jeff,
3.
and Steve.
And I think also the wages like for water main breaks and everything else like that is included in that.
Yeah.
It's not just the treatment plant operator's wages.
Yeah, anything related to the water tank.
Yeah.
so there's 3 employees?
There's 3 employees. including-
Plus, if there's water main breaks, that goes to the waters too, so the wage would go to that, the public works, do they go to that as well?
It doesn't.
Okay.
And the reason it doesn't currently is because the coding system is not giving you the reporting that comes right there.
The only other thing that I had was in your capital. When we looked at capital, and it's actually in the future years, which is just like a tennis court and a gym fitness center. I'd love to see them. I just don't think that that's feasible for our small town. So I'm just wondering if those should be taken out. Because we've got it under other provincial funding. Those are the only other 2 questions that I kind of have.
I also agree.
Jeff, do you have thoughts on
Yeah,
the
so-
gym and the fitness center?
Yes, we did look at 28, 29, when we were doing it this year. In the past, we submitted a 10-year, visionary budget. 300,000 would not cover the cost of that, so that is fine to have that removed.
Perfect.
As for tennis court, I don't think that's unrealistic, but that's something we could apply for funding for, and it's 2 years out, so we can, have time to revise that. But the ball field light expansion, that is extremely low, and that would be my suggestion if we were gonna remove something would be that, because we're not generating enough revenue to expand or replace the lights.
Yeah. And your lights would probably cost closer to 60,000 now.
Well, we would have to redo the poles, because they're not proper height, so it'd be more like 150,000.
All right.
So do we
I
want
might
to?
take that off. Or leave that on there, the ball field.
If we could take that off, or whatever council wants us to do.
Take it right off.
Ball field light / expansion. Do we want to leave that on capital for 27, 28?
But the ball field does get a lot of usage. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It does.
Yeah, I think if I was looking at anything, I'd probably keep the ball field lights and expansion on, take the tennis court off.
But that's also gonna be in the tune of 150 to 200,000, cause that ball field light expansion has been on this capital budget since I started with council 8 years ago.
Oh,
And it just keeps kind of getting pushed,
oh,
you know, because it's a high priority, but it's not a super high priority.
Yeah.
So it would be a lot more than
Unless you're playing
40,000.
ball.
yeah. The same as the tennis court is probably gonna be a lot more than 75. I would think, and where we, you know. Those are just my questions.
I mean, these are 27, 28
Exactly.
as well. I mean, they
Exactly.
can stay there. We can, you know, Aaron can revisit, maybe, you know, get new quotes or whatever, you know.
Well, I'm not I can't speak to the issues of the ball field other than, and maybe you can, Jeff, in terms of, there's tournaments, there's all kinds of other kinds of activities that take place. And-
Soccer and like, you know, it's not just ball.
Yeah, and, but I know baseball, lights are, you can expand to 10 o'clock at night if you want. It can increase the usage, that's all I'm pointing out.
Is the revenue listed for the ball field on here someplace?
Yes, it is.
$1,000?
Yeah.
It's $1,000.
$1,000.
So you have to look at that.
We discussed it between Aaron and I to put lights in the ball field. There's already lights on one. It doesn't make sense to tear those poles down, put new poles up, and lights on it. Put two new poles on the other field and put lights in the second field, and you have lights on both. The ones that on the first field are. They're at max, when they're on, like, I have to change the panel every couple of years, cause the panel's maxed out every year, and it actually starts tripping them after a while. So if we're gonna do lights, if that's the way they wanna go, but it's gonna be more than $40,000, cause it's gonna have to have poles and everything else. That's the problem right now.
Would you have
I
to
think-
up the panel, or would the panel, if you
No,
replace
there'd
the lights, would
be
it?
a whole new,
more high
it would be a
efficient
whole
light?
new, power supply.
Oh, okay.
Because we wouldn't be able to add it on to the one that's existing, so it'd be another one, it would be another, probably just a panel and a pole, we don't need a building, but it would be another panel
Right.
separate. With new poles and lights on the second field, which would meet the. You know. Demand of
Mhm.
today's.
But as Council Osborne has said, the town is growing, so there are all kinds of other opportunities in another year or 2 or 3. That may open. And, I mean, I've attended a lot of ball games with my father and with my children, and. I was thinking that. If I went and asked my two boys specifically for their hockey or whatever, so what are your fond memories? And I'm sure they're gonna come back and say, you remember the time I made the picture? Balk, and the team won a gold medal. You know, things like that. They're memory creating for young people.
Thank you. And I just want to kind of echo what Travis said. If there's anything for the rec department, because it's got such a big deficit that we can do for cost recovery, that would be wonderful. Something that I think we should really look at. Any more questions? We move on.
We can, I think, that is concluded Helen's
Yes.
presentation, and
Included
looking
presentation.
forward to council for any questions. Next steps for us, I think we've got some questions to answer, I'm looking for back in some efficiencies. And we'll work with council for direction for The budget, I believe, we can either get some direction tonight, or we can come back on Thursday night at the, committee of all, another conversation if needed.
Kind of direction are you looking for?
Well, just next steps in the process, are we satisfied, are we looking for more information? We're happy to get more research or presenting more information, but if we're not hearing more questions, we might be in a position to bring this forward to council either on Thursday for the next conversation, or we can have motions tonight if council wants.
I'd like to have the information regarding. Yeah, and efficiencies and recreation if there is any.
And I would like to add the newsletter back into the budget.
What, in printed form?
Yeah, printed form, yeah.
And mail out.
And mailed out as we've been doing, because I've attended a number of sessions where the point has come up about what can we do to help people who do not have cell phones, as I happen to have, computers, they're on Facebook, and how do we communicate information with them? And I don't think we've utilized the newsletter as much as we could have in the past to communicate different information to people. And it's come up under disabilities and accessibility in that whole discussion within that.
If I may, what the direction we've taken on the newsletter just in the last few months is we've stopped mailing out to 1,600 properties once a month. We've put the newsletter in Foodland, I believe the post office, and is it the library, Aaron, that we put it in, there's 3 locations. So we're only printing a certain number of them. We haven't had any feedback from any residents that there's any information lacking in the community, and a request to go revert back to the old process. We're happy to do that. However, in terms of,
That's awesome.
costs,
gonna be.
it's costly to send out, it's costly to print. And, coming to the environment, less paper. That's the direction we decided to go. And we haven't had any feedback from the community to say that it isn't working right now. So if there's feedback from council say it isn't, we're happy to take
Yeah,
direction.
the only feedback that I've heard is by putting it in those locations, people who probably have mailboxes like up the road, they don't see the newsletter. Cause they don't have the post office.
I actually haven't seen it in the post office.
Well, okay, biting my tongue on that one. Cause
No, I haven't.
I haven't seen it at the post office either, and I actually did ask the postmistress about it.
We would have copies down here at the town hall too, would we not? They could come
We
here
have
and
comments in
visit.
town hall, yes.
I just know that when I would go into the post office, you'd look over at the garbage and
Mhm.
it would be full with the newsletters. And that's just the taxpayers throwing money away.
And if we're talking about efficiencies, to me, that's a fairly simple one.
Well, my wife would disagree with you.
Well, postage also too went up in January, so
Actually.
it would be quite expensive, but.
And we can utilize our sign too, right?
We can utilize the sign, yes.
I mean, if we are, like, I would like to see them. I think when we looked at this, there was the suggestion of Foodland, here and the post office, but I have yet to see them in the post office.
And I've never actually seen them at Foodland either.
So I don't know if it's just one being posted, or if it's a stack on, they're available, because I've not personally seen either at the post office.
I will look into it.
So how long do you think it would take you to get that information back? I mean, 2 days is a little short, I think.
It's definitely short.
Yeah, so bring it back at the end of, for our council meeting?
Rather than-
Yeah, I believe 24th might be doable.
Or May.
Yeah, I'll do my best to be back on the 24th.
That's gonna be on the first and second.
So we're gonna move on, there's no bylaw or policies, we have no citizens comments. Or for me, I have nothing at this time. Counselors, any reports? Report, no camera something, so we will adjourn. Motion, oh, sorry, adjourn at 7:10. Can I get a motion to adjourn at 7:10?
With that motion?
Counselor Osborne,
I'll second it.
seconder,
I'll do that.
Counselor LeBlanc. Discussion? All in favor?
Keep the weight on it.
Yes, I'm seeing.